the ancient heartbeat of the Mayan civilization, a budget frontier hidden in the clouds of Central America. This is a landscape defined by over 30 towering active volcanoes and massive, pristine crater lakes. And for foreign earners, the primary draw is living inside this geography. You can secure modern, beautifully preserved spaces in historic cobblestone valleys like Antigua for a fraction of Western rent. But the influencer marketing selling a $500 a month paradise leaves out the heavy State Department warnings concerning urban violence just an hour away. To understand the reality, we look at this split-screen comparison matrix. The left side highlights the high reward of an $800 rent and $5 meals, but the right side exposes the friction. The local average wage sits at just $450, alongside severe safety warnings. The sharp gap between these columns reveals a trap. Navigating extreme affordability right next to extreme economic disparity without a strict plan leaves travelers highly vulnerable. We are stripping away the eternal spring aesthetics today. We need to examine the hard legal, financial, and security protocols actually required to survive and relocate here. Moving here is a strict exercise in geo-arbitrage. You trade first-world urban infrastructure for massive reductions in living costs, a transaction that only works if you arrive with foreign-sourced wealth. Accessing this terrain is highly straightforward. If you carry a passport from the US, the UK, Canada, or the EU, you receive up to 90 days of completely visa-free entry. For travelers holding other passports, including Indian nationals, there is an efficient workaround. Carrying a valid, used multi-entry visa from the US, Canada, or the Schengen area grants you the exact same 90-day visa-free access. But before you reach the checkpoint, you must complete this specific digital document. Every incoming international traveler must complete the electronic travel declaration online to avoid border rejection. Once you clear customs, you enter the expat economic bubble. Unlocking the premium, heavily secured zones of Antigua or Guatemala City is entirely dependent on importing outside currency. For a remote worker, rent for a modern, highly attractive one-bedroom apartment in these specific zones will reliably fall between $500 and $800 a month. Food economics are heavily in your favor. Standard, high-quality restaurant meals rarely break the $10 mark, granting you access to national staples like this rich, spiced pepillon meat stew. This baseline budget frees up time. You gain access to an exceptionally slow-paced, deeply spiritual lifestyle, driven by living indigenous Mayan arts and textile traditions. When you put this overall cost structure next to its southern neighbor, Costa Rica, Guatemala emerges as a significantly cheaper base of operations. Yet, this idyllic lifestyle remains an insulated construct. You are operating completely detached from the nation's baseline economic struggles. To understand why local integration is nearly impossible for outsiders, we have to look at the actual gears of the Guatemalan economy. The national GDP relies heavily on intensive agricultural exports, specifically banana production, and the massive yields of premium Arabica coffee you see being harvested here. There is also a severe scale of wealth extraction occurring in the mining sector, particularly with raw, unpolished green jade. This bar chart demonstrates the employment trap. The tall bar shows the minimum expat rent, while the shorter bar displays the baseline local salary. Combined with complex local sponsorship paperwork, the math eliminates traditional expatriate job hunting completely. This strictly favors foreign remote digital nomads and eco-entrepreneurs establishing a low tax base while earning offshore. Attempting to rely on the local Guatemalan economy to sustain your stay yields a negative return on investment. The border is effectively closed to anyone attempting to relocate without a laptop-based income. Bringing foreign wealth into a developing economy requires paying what we call the safety tax, the mandatory, non-negotiable behavioral modifications required to survive. Safety here is entirely determined by geography. Cultural hubs and the isolated villages surrounding the massive volcanic caldera of Lake Atitlan are heavily guarded and highly secure. That rural serenity stands in strict contrast to the dense, sprawling urban environment of the capital, Guatemala City. Specific districts inside the capital face severe, ongoing challenges with localized gang activity and pervasive petty street crime. Expats must follow rigid daily protocols. You bypass isolated neighborhoods after sunset, relies strictly on verified rideshare applications and never display expensive tech hardware on public streets. Once you lock in your safety protocols, you have to account for environmental friction and address the myth of the land of eternal spring. Travelers arriving off-season face the wet monsoon cycle, bringing aggressive afternoon downpours from May to October. If clear skies and tracking active volcanoes are your priority, there is a strict optimal window for relocation, November to April. Personal security and climate enjoyment here require absolute situational awareness and inflexible timing to navigate without consequence. Guatemala is a high-reward environment that demands absolute financial self-sufficiency and strict adherence to the local reality. Let's look at this viewer archetype matrix. For the remote nomad, it's a green light, a top-tier optimization for online earners. The budget traveler also gets a green light, with 90-day visa-free access. But for the local job seeker, this flashes red. The combination of extremely low local wages and complex sponsorship paperwork pushes the financial risk far too high. Ignoring these exact archetype boundaries is what leaves tourists vulnerable and underfunded in a developing nation. You have to ruthlessly calculate your own risk-to-reward ratio and lock down an external income source before you pack your bags for the volcanic frontier.